I'm just saying.
We'll save it.
Don't come for Dolly. It could be the end of us. Welcome back. We're the Book Mavens. I'm Amanda. She's Rachel. And you're joining us for the final installment of Mystery March, where we read Dolly Parton and James Patterson's new book, Run, Rose, Run, which I really insisted on. It came out in the beginning of the month. I think it came out on March 7th. And I am a huge Dolly fan. And so immediately told Rachel, scrap everything we picked for the last week. We're going to read this. And let me tell you, it was basically exactly what I thought it would be. And I liked it.
The storyline, absolutely. If you're going to put this book without any of the cover, any of the information, next to 100,000 other books, you would absolutely be able to identify that this is the one that Dolly Parton
This is
had
Dolly. Which
really,
I have
really
to say, I'm actually very pleased about. I was a little bit more nervous that Dolly's participation would have been just writing the songs from the songwriter standpoint. But you can see a lot of Dolly's own personal background in there, a lot of her flavor in the way that the character talks. I mean, one character, I think he probably just took a tape recorder to one of their conversations and then just started plugging in stuff she said, because some of those phrases are very Dolly.
That the majority of this was Dolly Parton.
I liked it. It reminded me very much of her Netflix series she did, the Heartstrings one, where they basically made movies about some of her most popular songs, like fictional movies. It's like that. And then I found out this morning they have already optioned it as a movie, and Dolly's going to play the lead. Yeah, she's going to play Ruth Anna. It's going to be great.
I forgot.
Ruth Anna Ryder.
There's so many more letters.
Listen, I'm from a very southern town. This is all par for the course. This is just, I was waiting on a bow.
I mean, the character of Ruth Anna in here is Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton wrote herself into the book. There's just no question. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, minus
she doesn't have a theme park.
That's true. And minus the tragic story, like Dolly Parton, her husband is still alive and she's
she didn't lose a child. Yeah. Anyway, spoiler.
So,
but, that's not a big one. But
it's less important to the total tale.
Yeah. So, Run, Rose, Run. Story about a girl, very talented songwriter, running from her past.
She's running from her past. Which honestly, it's bad, and then it takes a very sinister turn at the end. Like a whoa.
It really does.
Like whoa. If you've not read it and you're planning to, don't watch this video, because we're just gonna.
It did surprise me a little bit. I honestly thought she was running from a cult, to be honest. That's what I thought it was. Because they were talking about survivalist things. So I got this whole thing where she was in some kind of
culty, commune type situation.
Yeah.
I don't know that I
definitely
thought of
faced
anything.
male abuse. There was no question that there was an abusive background with men.
I knew it was bad, but I don't know that I thought anything of it. There were a couple places that I will say even surprised me, the main character, the main romantic interest / side character,
Ethan Blake. Right?
Ethan Blake. Yeah, he's like, I got to tell you something, and then just proceeds to talk about how his wife was murdered, and you're like, whoa, okay. All right.
And that he was accused of strangling her.
Yeah, he was accused of murder.
6 months in prison. You're like,
it was a
wow.
Because Ethan obviously didn't do it because he's such a good guy. But listen, and then you're just like, wow, okay.
And it has absolutely nothing to do with the overall plot. There's no. Well, I don't want to say too much, but I mean, let's just say there are a lot of strings that kind of just
really paint him as a tragic figure.
Just don't go anywhere.
And that'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll do it. Yeah. His wife was,
Well, he was in the military, yeah. And so he was deployed a lot, and they got married really young, and she, two-timed him. Look at my phrasing. Such a country thing to say. Two-timing. Look at me go. No, she
two-timed him. Sorry. He was, he's Ethan. He's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so, his deep, dark secret. And then they just blew right past it. I was like, wow, that was a pretty big, it's a pretty big scene to be dropping in the yard for nothing to pop up.
Yeah. I mean, the character that we're dealing with, what's her name? Annie Lee. There it is. I struggle with those. But okay, so
Annie
Lee Keys.
Annie Lee Keys.
Yeah, so she hitchhikes her way. She has a gun.
To Nashville.
Has a gun. Hitchhikes, the most dangerous way for a young, beautiful woman to travel. But that's how she goes about it. You know, go her.
It's meant to show the desperation.
I guess, sure. I mean, she is homeless.
I do think
sleeping in a park.
I do think she did a good job of like painting the desperation element in the beginning. However, I have to say,
I would no more fall asleep in a cab of a semi. No.
Well, listen, exhaustion. I don't know. I had to be honest. I've never given a lot of thought to what I would do in such a desperate circumstance. Thank goodness.
Anyway.
And then by the time you get to the end and they like wrap up the story relatively quickly, I have to say this is kind of exactly what I imagined James Patterson's writing to be. I've never read a lot of it, but I think if you told me like this is kind of how his stories go, I'd have believed it. It's a suspenseful cozy. Yeah, it's a very well written one.
I wouldn't even say that it's suspenseful.
Well, it's a Lifetime movie.
Yeah, it's, you never really, well, I mean,
you kind of know there's going to be twists and turns. You kind of know it's coming.
I mean, there's a lot of terrible things that happen to her in the book, but they just kind of like gloss over it. She gets the crap beat out of her twice. And then they're like, oh, you know, it's just some crazy fan, whatever. So Ethan is now like her bodyguard. But okay. But bodyguard Ethan.
Let's talk about the part that really bothered Rachel in this book. She came and told me about it immediately upon reading.
I did, because I was okay with how it was going. Like, it was fine. It's very much like a cozy. I was involved. I was participating. I was motivated to see what was going to happen with this character. And I do like the Dolly Parton flavor. I mean, she's very cute. But the so there's this whole scene where Annie Lee is in the car with Ethan in his truck or whatever. And meanwhile, there's somebody that's been following them. And Ethan's getting pissed. Instead of doing what anybody else, which you're trained to do if you think somebody's following you, is to go into a police station. That's what they train you to do. You drive around until you find a police station.
Here's the thing. Ethan is ex-military and has been trained to avoid vehicles. So he's, in one part, he's probably just doing it at first to see if they're following him. And
no, absolutely. Then, yes. No, that's fine. It's that he decides to do this maneuver where he's going to flip around and then clip the back of the car that's been following them to spin them out for them to rush away. Number one, that's stupid. And number two, Annie Lee had been sleeping, and then she wakes up and she jerks the steering wheel, right? And so he's not able to do this maneuver, and he's mad, and they're both out of the car. Meanwhile, not a minute before that, somebody had been tailing them.
Yeah, but he ran off.
But, okay. So, and then they're yelling at each other. She goes, I don't need your help. And he's like, fine, like back and forth. It's really very, very immature. And she goes, just leave me here. And he's like, okay, fine. What? It's like, continue your squabble, give each other the cold shoulder, and what? He knows.
I really kind of thought we were going to have a moment there.
That people are after her. It was ridiculous. And he leaves her there. I just couldn't. Yeah,
that's true. I couldn't. There was some kind of revelation in that moment, and there wasn't.
Nothing. He just leaves her there.
Yeah, I have to admit.
He's nice, though, because he goes by her little cottage that she's renting and drops off her stuff. What a winner.
Rachel was so mad.
I was so mad. I was A-okay until that happened, and that just...
Very upset.
I have a really hard time with books, like, once they've done things that are so out of the character.
She wouldn't get back in the truck.
She is a tiny little woman. Meanwhile, they talk about that all the time. He is an ex-military big guy. It totally fits the narrative in terms of how Dolly Parton writes, for him to have just chucked her over his shoulder and threw her in the truck.
But that would have infuriated her more than anything.
But it didn't matter. They were already mad.
I'm saying that both of those things are out of character. The trouble is,
I don't think that's out of character at all for a military man to have just thrown her over.
But he respects her, and her whole thing is not being told what to do and like whatever. I think that would have really damaged any potential relationship.
You cannot justify.
I'm not justifying. I'm saying I don't think that yours would have made it any better in terms of plot, because
it didn't end up mattering. They were mad at each other. They stayed mad at each other, then they were over it.
This is an actual inconsequential scene
it was totally stupid. Like, they didn't even need to write it. It didn't really serve a purpose. It didn't serve a purpose.
Other than him realizing that people are following them, but honestly, he'd already kind of been onto that. So I kind of with you. Yeah, I don't really know.
it was just so ridiculous, and it took you out, because to me, Ethan Blake, he had signed up, okay, so this guy's so dedicated, he's like been sleeping in his truck outside of her cottage, but literally somebody has just been chasing them, and he leaves her on this, like, that truck could have just circled back around. Are you serious?
It's a valid point.
It's
a valid point.
I just couldn't, and after that, I still zipped through it, it was fine, because it's an easy read, but like, they lost me with that scene. Like, I was just like, oh.
And Rachel was never the same.
I was not the same again for this book.
Well, Rachel had got to that part before me. And
yeah,
so
no, I was very...
She's very upset.
I was.
She told me about it. It did not, like I said, spoil any kind of plot. So I knew it was coming. So when I read it, I was like, okay. I see it. And then I kept moving.
But when I told her about it, she goes, oh, you were pretty horrified.
I was horrified as someone who grew up in this kind of community that they're talking about where people are well-mannered and look out for each other. And I was like, you would never.
You just
never.
I mean, even if he didn't, like, throw her in the truck, it would be like, okay, well
then we're going to sit here until you get back in the truck and we can go.
Or I'm going to sit here. And because I think, like, they said that where she had made where she was telling Ruth Anna, right? Ruth Anna? Yeah. That she had called a Lyft or something or other.
Yeah.
So then he would have sat there, so fine, you want to ride with me, and I'm going to sit here and make sure you're okay. You call a Lyft, and I want to make sure that you get... There were so many other conclusions besides leaving her butt on the side of the road when somebody's after her.
Okay, are you ready for my unrealistic one that really kind of did it for me?
There
is a lot,
guys. There are a few.
Guys, you have to suspend reality. It's exactly what you thought it would be. But here's my thing. I didn't expect
the characters exactly what I thought they would be. I wanted more from the plot.
Yeah.
The characters were fine. They were very cute. There wasn't anything like Ruth Anna's lovely. Annie Lee's very immature, but she's supposed to be. She's supposed to be.
She's supposed to have very little experience
and
outside of the horrible trauma.
And so that worked. Ethan Blake worked until that scene. And then, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's when she... It's the balcony scene where she's running away from someone who's trying to hurt her, and like she's in a essentially like
that's an opening scene too, and then they go back to
and she jumps out of this she falls
off a
4
balcony
stories
in a hotel,
and at the hospital he's like, it's a miracle you have a scratch, and I was like, okay.
I love he had already
she
lost.
She didn't fall in a pool or if something like that, I could have probably gone for it. No, homegirl fell in the bushes and she's walked away with
glass
and locked away the scratch. And I was like, okay, but I'm glad. It's not that I wanted her to be more hurt, but I was like, okay. And then there was that, and they're like, and nothing happened, and she like runs away from the hospital. And I was like, okay.
Now this is a common thing that I see in film all the time, in books. She lost consciousness for an extended period of time. Mm-hmm. When you lose consciousness, that signifies a concussive event has happened. Mm-hmm. There is nothing light about receiving a concussion.
Sure.
And that's something that I just don't understand that books and fictionalists, that they do this where they just like get up and like shake it off and they're fine. That is not what happens when you lose consciousness. Like, that's brain trauma. So to me, without a scratch and girlfriend's unconscious for hours in a hospital, and then they're like, oh, you're fine. No.
I'm kind of with you.
No.
If you can't hear it, Alice has found some tissue paper.
He sure has. He's down here living his best life.
I mean, okay, so all this aside,
all these things. Is it very implausible things?
Is it more or less than I thought it would be? It's pretty much exactly what I thought it would be. I anticipated
better editing.
Well, and here, let me say
James Patterson's a powerhouse. I expected a better editor.
But I've never read any of his, and I
don't love him as a writer, but still.
I know that it's someone who's that prolific and that successful probably has a relatively successful, I hate to say formula, but they have a relatively successful style of writing. And so I anticipated that this would be similar to many things that he had wrote. And when you are, basically this book is about star power, right? It's Dolly Parton and James Patterson.
Living with fame.
Right, that's, boom. Like, that's the thing.
Shapes you.
I mean, I just don't know. I feel like this could have been actually, I was going to say, I think this could be a really great television series. And then I'm like, wait, I think it was. I think there was a show called Nashville. It's basically this. Similar. But anyway, what I'm saying is like, some things really did take me by surprise. And I really did enjoy the journey. But it wasn't keeping me up at night. And it wasn't like, I was surprised but not shocked by anything that happened.
And let's talk about the title for a second. Run, Rose, Run. You don't know who the hell Rose is until 3/4 of the way, at least, through the book.
No, because she keeps getting the messages that say Rose. So I'd say halfway. Because
Did they actually say Rose?
Some of the threatening messages say Rose. That's why you're like,
I forgot that then. Scratch that. That's just me.
So I'd say about halfway through.
Okay.
So you foreshadowing.
Okay.
Foreshadowing. But the music, I've been listening to the album.
I haven't listened to any of the music, so it's good.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It's very,
at the end they have all of the lyrics printed out for you too, so you can take a look.
They do, and in the special edition one, they were the handwritten lyrics that Dolly did.
But someone didn't want the special edition.
I didn't order the special edition because
she was worried the book was going to be bad.
It would be no, I was worried. This is my trouble with special editions. We could do a whole nother video on this,
and we probably will.
I am very much I look at books the way I look at sunglasses.
Utility tool.
Yeah, I never spend more than $10 to $15 on a pair of sunglasses because inevitably I will break them, damage them, scratch them, whatever, and I don't want to feel bad about it when I do because I want to be able to wear them worry-free as I go about my day. A book, I want to be able to read it in the bathtub, take it in my bag with me, take it to school. Like, I want to be able to haul that thing around, and when a page rips or gets squished in the bag or, heaven forbid, dip it in the tub a little too close. I want to not be sad about it. Hence my avoidance of special books, like special editions, because they require me to be very careful as I'm reading, and I don't want to be careful while I read. I want to just read. And that's just how I look at it. Mm-hmm. But Rachel looks at them as like works of art. Which is also perfectly fine. We just have different.
Yeah, but I do still read. Like if I'm really into, I'll read digital so I can move around and not have to worry about my kids ruining them. But like typically when you're getting books with like the sprayed and stenciled edges and stuff, you really don't want to be handling the pages all that much. They really are display pieces for the most part. So it just depends. If you want to, you think about how people use libraries, right? In their homes, because I'm designing my own, and so it's going to be this gigantic wall. I have a really high ceiling, and it's going to be with a ladder. No, I'm really doing it up. All right. So anyway, that is a centralized focus in people's homes, and so I like the idea of having these, and they are works of art to me. They're displayed pieces of art. So I still read all of my books, or eventually get to them. I do have a tremendous pile. But
we don't need to talk about our TBRs.
So it's for another day. But So, but I have duplicates too. So if I want to read them, I sometimes I'll jump ahead and I'll get a paperback, or I'll buy one that's not a special edition. And then because I have all those subscription boxes, then I end up with a special edition. So then I have two, and then it doesn't matter. But
not having multiples of things kind of.
You just sell them or trade.
I don't like having multiples of books.
You trade them.
It's my minimalist mother coming out in me.
I just have them, so if there's anything that gets, like my paperback can get beat up, it's okay. If I have this nice special edition, I do keep them protected until my shelves are built. So, it's fine. Yeah, but you get duplicates. You could always just trade. There's a big market for special edition books. Mm-hmm. Amanda's learning from me.
I am. Oh my! I'm learning so many things. So would you recommend this to people? I would. I think this is a good vacation read or a plane read. It's not.
I give you that. It's not
engaging. I wanted to read. I wanted to know. I wanted to keep going. But it also was not hard to pause. And
that was fine. You could pick it back up and you'd be fine. But that scene, I read it digital. I didn't purchase it.
Through our phone.
It would have been gone. I would have thrown that out a window, out a door. It would have been gone. So
that is the downside of reading digital, is that when you get really emotional, you
can't
toss the book in indignation. You can't, because that's your phone. So you're just like,
but
gently set it down.
And it's not the same. I mean, like, I'll angrily, like, just close the app, you know, and it's just not the same.
There is something so satisfying about, like, tossing the book away from you.
Slamming it
like,
closed. Something, you know, you just don't get that satisfaction. They say that about cell phones. Like, you don't have the same satisfaction when you used to have.
Oh, yeah, when you used to hang up, it was very final. You could close the flip on your flip phone, or you could put the hanger. Yeah.
Now it's just like, ugh. You know, it's just not the same.
You don't always push that button, I've learned. It's my bad.
Anyway, so Run, Rose, Run. Would I recommend it? I think that this story will be much better on screen.
And it's gonna be.
Yeah. And so if you're interested to see just, you know, a story that she had a part in, I would actually just hold off on the book and just wait for the film, because it reads like a film, because you don't really spend too much time in the characters' minds. Like, a lot of it is very much externalized. So I think even just the way that they wrote it, that it was just kind of meant to be on a screen. Like, it's a story to watch, to play out, because it's also about the little threads that they just lose. And it's easier to do that in a film, I feel like, than in a book, because you could have closed them and the decision was made not to, or poor editing, whatever it may be, that you tend to be more forgiving of those things in film. So that's my critique. I mean, I liked it. I love the Dolly Parton flavor. I liked Ruth Anna. I like that character. Very endearing. And exactly what you think Dolly Parton would write. There's no major surprise, for sure. But that would be my recommendation. But if you really liked it and you enjoyed that and you want more of those characters, I would say this would be, like, which I never say, is to then go back and read the book. You might want to watch it first. Because then you just might get a little bit more. I can also
see where, like, having listened to the musical album, either in the movie or in the thing, would have been helpful. Because there are places where, you know, she's toying with lyrics in her head. And if you already are well-versed in the songs, that would make a difference. Because you know.
I could see that.
It would add a rich layer, I think. Because I didn't listen to the album until after. Okay. So that would be a nice addition. So what it had, cool. Your thoughts on Mystery March as a whole? Yeah. Your thoughts on the mystery genre, Rachel?
Mysteries are something that is definitely going to be where I'm going to have to be very discerning in terms of which ones I pick up. And I was burned. Like, I really thought the way that 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle was really going to appeal to me. And I had to drag myself through that book. And so that was a little disappointing. So I think maybe I'll wait and I'll try and find some reviewers that cover more mystery and kind of see what they say about it and maybe make some decisions. I did really like Lady Sherlock. I really like Mr. Churchill's Secretary. There it is. You know, I always love a good, strong female character. I always will gravitate towards that. So I mean, I like those, you know, because there's also other stories. I like the idea of them being serials instead of, you know, like standalones. I often find, like, if you're going to develop a character that solves mysteries, there should be more than just one. So, you know, those I would revisit. So anything like that kind of in the mystery genre, I think I'm going to be more a fan of. And I've read other mysteries that are like that too, where it's like family members that are solving things, or the Plum ones. You know what I'm talking about? Evangeline Plum. I read a couple of hers, and it's also with a female kind of detective PI kind of deal, and those were good. Yeah, but I don't know about, like, other ones. I'd have to weigh in. I'd have to get some other people to give me more direction. But no,
I still love it, and I still love it.
You didn't love every single book we read, though.
No, but I mean as a genre.
Oh yeah, no, I like the genre. It's just, it's not something.
I had a lot more buy-in in the genre, though, as a whole than you did.
Yeah.
Although, let me say, I had fun experimenting. You really figured out.
Yeah, I was able to kind of tighten up in terms of what I'm going to look for. You know, but there aren't any dragons, and that makes Rachel sad. So, you know, fantasy is always going to appeal to me, I think, a little bit more. It's always going to have an edge on the other genres just because I like the fantastical. So
and sometimes the fantastical for me is just like,
Well, you can get a crappy book no matter what genre you're looking at.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I've learned that lesson through the course of this channel.
For sure.
All right. Well, next week we're going to be doing Empire of Gold, which is the third and final installment of the Daevabad trilogy. So we'll be back in Fantasyland for Rachel. We hope you've enjoyed mystery merch. If there are mystery books that you think we should read, put them in the comments. And as always, we look forward to talking to you there. See you next time. Bye. Sometimes our coworkers, they poke at me about Dolly just to poke, and I'm like, I will end you.
Who does that?
He sent me this source about how Dolly's covered in tattoos, and his source was Jezebel.com, and I was like, dude, do better. Also, she does have tattoos, not full sleeves. Dolly recently came out and talked about how she'll get a tattoo to cover something like a scar. She likes to turn something hurtful into something beautiful.
Well, there you go.